Hey guys, welcome to Wrench to Drive Worst Upgrade Ever Edition. Now when it comes to RC cars, I'd like to think I'm not a complete nincompoop, but this little bad boy here, this WLToys, has kind of made me feel like a bumbling buffoon. You be the judge. This has got all upgraded arms, links, blah blah blah. Check out that play. Yeah. That's some crappy upgrades, guys. Some really crappy upgrades. Alright, so that's the front. It's got steering linkage and whatnot. How about the rear? Think that's any better? Yeah, not so much. Not so much. Now, the keen-eyed of you can maybe spot the camber there. Yeah, the measurements, those Chinese measurements. Not so very good. There's a ton of camber. And that's supposed to be just stock. That's supposed to match the stock setup. Alright, so lots of metal goodies, baddies as it turns out. Pretty much everything in this had problems, but if we hold on to this front end, you can see, holy smokes, there's a lot of play everywhere. And the worst part, guys, is that I put quite a bit of effort into actually trying to get this to work, and failed pretty much completely, I would say, because that amount of play, this is not going to drive very well, guys. The control of this is going to be poor. It's going to be twitchy, super twitchy. I was going to run these rally tires, get a little running in the snow going with a little more ground clearance than normal, but I don't think that's going to work so well. So if you're still even remotely interested, keep watching, and I'll go through this in some level of detail and tell you everything that's wrong with this. Now, the one thing that I didn't notice, that I just noticed putting the tires on, yet another problem, the stub shafts, two of them, the hole was off center. It was shifted to one side, so I had to do some grinding to get the hexes to fit, if you can believe that. So yes, problems oh plenty. And now, without further ado, on to the analysis. Keep in mind that this was a super cheap kit, 25 bucks for all the metal goodies. I figured, how far on can you go, right? I mean, 25 bucks worth of useful. Gotta be some stuff in there that's useful, right? Yeah, I'm gonna say it's disappointing. And get this, I complained to BangGood, got 10 bucks back, so I've only got 15 bucks invested in this. At $15, I'm still not sure it's worth it. That's how bad this upgrade is, my friends. So on we go. If you're still interested, by all means watch away. If all you want to know is what to stay away from, now you know. These cheap upgrades off BangGood, stay far away. They are utterly atrocious. I was initially thinking about doing a conversion video to showing you how to put all these parts on, guys, but there were so many problems that I kind of figured that anybody who I would advise to buy these parts doesn't really need my help to put this together. So I'm just going to go over all the mile-long list of what a pain in the butt. Quite frankly, this car is not, I'm going to predict, is not any better. Maybe it looks better, but that's about it. And it was a lot of work to get it here, guys. So the first thing, real simple. This kit is supposed to fit. Notice that this body, it's on there nice. I had to widen these holes a little bit, and when I pop this off, you'll see it's really tight. Those holes don't line up very well. You kind of gotta pull and finagle it on there. It's not ideal. I'm thinking about switching back to the stock plastic shock mounts and body mounts, because that's the big problem. There's so many things in this set that are just not that good. So I've had this chassis for a long time. No real huge complaints, except it had problems as well. All kinds of holes were not the right size, screws were not right. It was definitely a do-it-yourself adventure. It's usable, but it was a pain in the butt as well. UREV, I don't know what you call it, but biggest reason that you might want this chassis, if you, I'm going to try and show you, let's see if we can see them. the motor mount holes. Notice you can move the motor mount side to side. Lets you run the big pinion. That alone might be the best reason to buy this chassis. It lets you run the big pinion setup and make the car go fast. So if you want the car to go fast, this chassis, not terrible. Alright, so the kind of thing that's wrong with this set of parts, guys, these are the front arms. Notice this one got no holes here. Yeah, even if you're like me and you have the tools, getting those holes drilled properly, tricky. Okay, that is not the easiest thing in the world. Don't get me wrong, it's doable. All you out there that are going, oh, what do you mean? Yeah, it's doable. It's tricky, guys. Trying to get those holes right, you know, do it yourself or at home, definitely a little tricky. If you got a drill press, probably not. If you're trying to do it yourself and make it happen, a little dodgy. So that sort of thing is very, very common, and I'm going to try and go through everything I found that was defective. Cross brace, these holes, these two holes here, not drilled all the way through. Had to drill those. Not the end of the world, but pain in the butt if you don't have a drill. I have a drill. All the holes on the shock mounts had to be drilled. They were a little too small. The screws did not fit through them without a little modificating. Not the end of the world. Relatively easy. Yeah, par for the course with this set. Now, something I don't know how well you're going to be able to see. I hope fairly well because it's pretty obvious. Have a look at that camber. I didn't notice this until I had it all put together. Look at that camber on the back end. Isn't that crazy? Look at that angle. See that drive shaft angled like that? That's camber. Yeah, I didn't notice that. Now it's all put together. I don't have adjustable links on there because I thought I'm just going to run stock. It works fine. That's a crazy amount of camber, my friends. If you can see it that easily, it's probably too much. It is what it is. So the back knuckles, something that should be relatively simple, not good. Another big thing, and I'm going to show you kind of a poor display of it, but whatever. Okay, so see that white stuff there? That's Teflon tape. The reason that there's Teflon tape around that bearing is because it's super loose. Super loose, my friends. Alright, and the inside bearing, this is the outside bearing, not the inside bearings on the inside here. Even looser. Yes, it's a problem. It is a problem. So that's quite a bit of work, guys. It's doable, but it's really finicky, a lot of farting around, not a whole lot of fun. I did it because I have a sickness. Yeah, it is what it is. This stub shaft here, this is one of the 4 that came with this kit. It's not good. See how there's black here? That's no threads. These threads up here, not very nice quality threads. Yeah, this part was not made properly. Also, the bearing does not fit over this shaft very well. Again, you could grind it, but and if you got a die, you can cut threads. That's not ideal. And I mean, you know, now we're getting into most people don't have taps and dies, so yeah, not great. So this is an old stub shaft. The others are all new. Now this is a pro tip, guys, because I found something with these parts that I didn't expect, and I thought I'd share with you. So this is a drive output shaft. This is one that's fairly worn in. Had it for a while, and as you can see, this bearing slides on no problem, right? All the way, fits perfectly. That was also the case out of the box. With this set of cheap upgrade parts, you get the output shafts. And the interesting thing about these output shafts is that, okay, I'm holding this with a pair of vice grips for a reason, and I'll show you. When you slide this bearing on, it will not go even close to all the way, okay? Now I pushed that hard enough that, you know, it's pretty snug. What you can do, take the vice grips, grab the end, you squeeze, not too hard, you don't want to break it, and then you can slide the bearing on. So when you put this together, guys, there's a problem. What the problem is, when the wheel's on, there's play, right? The shaft goes in and out a little bit. Now what you can do, and it's tricky, but what you can do is you put the wheel, you put the pin in, you put the hex on, you put the wheel on, you tighten it up, make sure it spins, and then what you do is you grab this, you squeeze it just enough to loosen up that bearing, and then you use a pokey stick, like a hex wrench, and you push the bearing slightly farther down the shaft so that it takes up the play, so there's less play, guys. And as you can see, this assembled piece here has essentially no play. Fits beautifully, spins freely, fits beautifully, no play. Alright, because I tweaked it. Now let's see if I can show you what happens if it is not tweaked. It's a bit of a pain to do this, guys. Yeah, there we go. So I got this tweaked now. Notice all that play that I had gotten rid of? Okay, now the interesting thing, these bearings are pretty tight, guys. The question is, once I fix it, once you tweak it so that it's nice and snug, when you're driving it, will it move? Will it loosen up? My guess is probably, but how easily? That's the question. I kind of think probably not that easily. So based on, you know, that bearing is really tight, guys. Like, it's, you know, you could push it on part way and then trying to get it off again, it's pretty tight. You got to reef on it really good. So there's a tip for you if you get a set like this that's a little dodgy. So these bearings are not all a bed of roses. There's a lot of play there. This is really loose, right? That's not good. And the outer bearings are really loose. They fall out super easy. I'll show you one here. So I'm putting this outer bearing in and having more trouble. Okay, so it's in. Boop. That's how loose they are. That's not good, my friends. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some Teflon tape around them and try and get them in there a little tighter. If you're wise to it, Teflon tape's really thin. There's also pipe fitting tape. It's yellow, much thicker. So I'll try both of those and see what happens. But okay, what else? Another small problem. If you look carefully right down here, you can see there's a little orange spacer in there. The reason I put that in was because the steering cross shaft was too close to the gear that comes out of the diff housing. Hard to see. There we go. See how where it sticks out there? The steering shaft rubbed on that. It was just a hair too tight. Now, do not do what I did. This was a mistake. What you want to do is grind on the cross piece, make some space. Okay, that is the way to fix it. The reason is that lifting this up creates space everywhere the stiffener goes. Not up front here, obviously. Not ideal. I left it alone because at this point I was tired of fixing things, my friends. So don't fix it the way I did. You want to do a little grinding on the cross linkage in the steering. If there's one reason to buy this quote-unquote upgrade, the steering actually seems to be pretty good. It seems pretty tight compared to the stock setup. I'm going to reserve 100% judgment until I get this completely put together, but that's my initial reaction. Another problem: one of the input cups, when I post a picture here, the beveled parts were not cut correctly. Had to do a little bit of grinding to get it to fit all the way into the diff housing. That was a really easy fix, but it's just, again, another indication of all the things that are wrong. Many problems. Ooh, lots of tweaking, guys. Just about everything on this needed some sort of tiny massaging. Oh, the drive shaft, the center drive shaft, millimeter too short. So the front end, the back seems to fit okay if you have the right spur gear, and the one that came with it does seem to fit. The front, it's a millimeter too short, so I put a spacer inside the pinion. There's a ring gear in the diff, and there's a pinion that drives the ring gear. I put a little spacer in there to get it to sit properly so I could cinch the screw in there nice and tight without it potentially causing problems. Now the trouble there is that I believe there was about 2 to 3 millimeters of beveled grippy part on the end of the drive shaft. Well, now you're only using 1.5 to 2.5, maybe 1.5 to 2, something like that. Not ideal. Definitely not going to. It's weakened. It's weakened, my friends. So that was relatively easy to fix. I used a 3D printed part, so if you don't have a 3D printer, you're going to have to fudge a part. You can take a little tiny washer and do a little bit of grinding on it. Probably a couple of little tiny washers. It was a millimeter spacer. The drive shaft is exactly a millimeter too short. So so that was another thing. Now that's probably the biggest problem. And of course I needed the drive shaft, so that was really disappointing, guys. I thought for sure that the drive shaft would be good, but it's not. Another thing I had to do to this, there's a couple of shiny spots on the drive shaft there by the pin. I think you can see if we look real careful, like there's a couple of shiny spots there. I had to file down some burrs around that pin because it would not fit on the gear. That was actually tricky. Alright, so I had to file down some burrs. Now it does fit. These something as simple as dog bones. If you get this upgrade set, check your dog bones, check the fit, make sure that they don't rub. If they do, you got to grind a little bit off the end of the pins. And I had problem on the outsides. The insides fit fine, the outsides a little too snug because the bearing actually goes around where the pins are, and the pins would touch the bearing. So you just have to grind a hair off. It's not that big of a deal, but if you don't check, it's a problem. So check those. That's another thing that was really annoying. So I used the plastic front arms. The one thing I noticed with this chassis, I think, is the problem. I had to grind a little bit of plastic off the bottom edge, the inboard, the closer to the back of the car edge of the A-arm, because it was rubbing and it was binding. Now it's not binding. It's actually still binding a hair, but these shocks, I set them up really stiff, and I knew that they would have enough oomph to work the suspension just fine, and I think it'll run in pretty well, quickly, and it'll work just fine. So I'm not too worried about it. Another problem. Notice how much play there is there. You'd have thought that metal parts might be a little bit better. They're not. And to me that was kind of to be expected because metal, you can't really make it a hair on the tight side and get away with it. You got to make sure that the hole's at least big enough. So yeah, that's quite a bit of slop. Not ideal. When I put the outboard parts together here, I used some Teflon tape and made sure that there was no slop. So the outboard part is tight. The inboard part, I was kind of lazy. I was tired, fatigued, didn't feel like doing it. It would be tricky. So that's something else. Oh, is that the whole laundry list of stuff that's wrong with this? I think it might be. Oh, yeah, as you can see on the back, where there was no modifications, right there is about a millimeter gap. There we go. I hope you can see that. There's a millimeter gap there. So this whole thing does not fit together super well. And I mean, it might be the chassis, the mount for the drive shaft here, the lower and upper piece, but I don't know, guys. I had this together with the stock plastic parts and everything seemed to work quite nicely. It's these aftermarket metal parts where everything seems to fit just atrociously. So yeah, that's about it. So there will be another video of me putting the rest of this together, and I'm putting in a brushless system with the big gears. It will go stupidly fast. I don't think I've had a video of this on the channel running stupidly fast with the brushless system, but trust me, it's crazy. I had it out for a rip quite some time ago, and I had a absolutely massive crash. This thing cartwheeled for about, I don't know, 30 feet, 40 feet, something like that, and yeah, it got a little banged up. So that's partly why I needed some parts. There was a couple of stub shafts that got bent, and I can show you some of the damage. One wheel, as you can see, big chunk of plastic gone on the outside. Oops. Another chunk of plastic on there. I think I had to glue some pieces into this to keep running them. And the only reason I bothered was because I didn't actually have any other ones kicking around at the time. As you can see, this one on the inside, lots of damage, big piece missing, cracked. The other two I think are okay, surprisingly. Yeah, I don't see anything on these ones. But suffice to say, it was a big crash. These wheels and tires, these are not terrible. These are cheapo, you know, 15 bucks for a set of 4. But I've had no troubles with them. They've generally held up pretty well. So that was a big gnarly crash. It did some heinous damage to the wheels. Like I said, bent 2 stub shafts. What else did it do? It did a bunch of damage. It was a good one. It was a real good one. Surprisingly, it held up pretty well. Like, nothing was actually broken. It still drove. It was beat up. Yeah, anyways, so we'll be going down that road again. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. And as I have said, be careful what you wish for. Cheap upgrade. Lots of work. Probably not worth saving the money. Although, I gotta say, these metal parts, when they're 70, 80 bucks, I don't know that they're worth it, my friends. I think you're better off just running the car with the plastic parts and having a good old time. These are cheap little cars that are fun to drive, and you really don't need to bother doing a whole lot to them except keep them running, in my humble opinion. But whatever makes you happy. If you like upgrading, maybe these parts are worth it to you for cheap. If you have a few tools, you'll be able to probably make them work. I did get a partial refund from BangGood, so yeah. I mean, I did complain because to me there was enough things wrong that even I was not happy. Yeah, that's it for this time. We'll see you next time on Wrench to Drive, where we ask the eternal question: do you drive to wrench, or do you wrench to drive?